Man, I just love Tom Cruise movies. Say what you want about him off screen, but his movies, man, they're just so fun to watch. And his newest film, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, is no exception. And it's exactly what I want from a summer blockbuster. And from what the box office says right now, is what the world wants from a summer blockbuster. I'm kind of sad that Oppenheimer and Barbie come out next week. Not because I don't want to see those films, but because I want films like Dead Reckoning to succeed at the box office. And I think it will, don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it will reach its potential because of the competition that's coming out next week. I hope I'm wrong. I hope these next two films are incredible, and I hope all three do incredibly well at the box office. But that kind of makes me sad that this is going to have a lot of competition going forward, because I really liked Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's an absolute joy to watch, a thrill ride with all the things that we love about the Mission Impossible series. The insane stunts, the insane story, great performances, a star-studded cast, the face swaps. All this and more is here in Dead Reckoning. And I'd say it's one of my favorites of the series and makes me really excited for part 2, which now I have no idea when we're going to see that, but it made me excited for the next movie. It did what it needed to do. Hi guys, my name is Jackson George. This will be a spoiler-free review. I think this film is better viewed if you don't really know everything that's going to happen in it. That being said, if you want to go in blind, click off this video. We're talking a couple plot points. Nothing that will ruin your viewing experience, but if you prefer to go in blind, I'd say click away. But if you've already seen the film, or it's just like, screw it, I don't care, I want to know what happens in this film right now, well then join me in the absolute thrill ride that is Dead Reckoning Part 1. The movie opens with a Russian submarine in the Arctic with experimental AI stealth technology on board. This sub is confronted with an enemy sea craft and engages in combat. However, little plot twist, it turns out that there was no enemy sub, but that the AI on board went rogue, causing the Russian sub to launch a missile into itself, exploding the sub. Everyone on board dies, and the key to the rogue AI is lost. Or so we think. We then cut to Ethan Hunt accepting a mission to go track down Elsa and obtain one half of the key to the AI. The key is a crucifix key, I think that's what they called it. Anyway, it like splits into two, and the only way to know if the key is legit is if the two sides click. There's two sides to the key. Elsa has one. They don't know where the other one is. He briefly meets up with Elsa and tells her to lay low. He then sneaks into a secret government meeting over a mysterious rogue AI called the Entity, which all the major world powers are trying to take control of. Because this AI has a ton of information, I forgot what exactly it took a hold of, but it knows certain codes, certain information that is vital to governments. And so naturally, everyone wants it to control it because that's like having a major super weapon that no one else in the world has. Of course, every single government's gonna want this thing. Upon learning this information, Ethan sets out to destroy the Entity, and he, Luther, and Benji head to Abu Dhabi airport to meet the owner of the second half of the key. While trying to locate the owner, Ethan runs into Grace, played by Hayley Atwell, who is a professional thief sent to steal the key. Ethan and Grace strike a brief alliance to obtain the other half of the key before the US or any other party can get to it. However, in a typical Mission Impossible plot twist, the key turns out to be a fake, and Gabriel, the right-hand man working for the Entity, is there. And this spooks Ethan out, like, freaks him out, okay? We learn later on that apparently Gabriel killed someone really close to Ethan before he had even joined IMF. So way back in the early days. And the reason we haven't heard about Gabriel is that he was presumed dead. But as we know in the Mission Impossible universe, if we don't see them die, they're not dead. That's the whole point of the Syndicate. It's all people who were dead, but they're not. Same with Gabriel. Anyway, while escaping, Grace steals the key from Ethan and hops on a plane and goes over to Venice, where all various parties meet up to try to steal the key in the action sequence we've all seen in the trailer, which that sequence was delightful. Anyway, the clock's ticking, and Ethan and the IMF need to obtain both parts of the key before any government or Gabriel can, and stop the entity before it is too late. Now, as I've said earlier, this film is incredibly fun to watch. For the most part, pacing through this film is done incredibly well. It handles the need for exposition and the need to slow down very well with all the action sequences and set pieces. Pacing, I think, was done really well, although I do think this film is a tad bit too long. Clocking in at a little over 2 hours and 40 minutes. I mean, the film doesn't feel long, like you're never bored, but there are a couple scenes that after you walk out of the theater, you're like, they probably could have cut that, or they probably could have shortened that. A little minor thing right there. I think characters here are a little hit and miss. I think Gabriel is a great new villain to introduce. I know this is one of 2 parts, so I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack here, but I wish they gave us a little bit more information about Gabriel, and I wish they tied him a little bit more into the history of the Mission Impossible series. Not just saying he and Ethan were involved before the first film. I don't know if this is the finale to the series, but if it is, it would have been nice for the final villain to be tied into all of that. But I think the actor does an incredible job playing Gabriel, and I think he poses as an actual threat to the IMF team. I mean, Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt is the same as always. You're not going to be disappointed with what you get of Ethan Hunt here. I think Haley Atwell's Grace character is a great new addition. And as much as I enjoyed Grace's addition, I do think it took a little too much time away from Rebecca Ferguson's Elsa character. I thought this was the movie to flesh her out, to really build that chemistry with Ethan that they've been alluding to for the past 2 films. To see her interact more with Luther and Benji. And we don't really get that here. I wish they spent a little bit more time on her character. And then speaking of characters that I wish they spent more time on, I think Benji and Luther are kind of cast to the side in this movie. In fact, towards the end of the movie, Luther flat out says he has to go somewhere away from the team. They are some of the highlights of the film. I know the stunts and the action pieces are really what I remember and what I think of when I think of Mission Impossible, but I really enjoy these characters and their interactions and missions, and I just don't think they get enough here. And again, this is the first of 2 parts, so maybe they get a crap ton of screen time in part 2. And who knows, maybe some behind the scenes stuff factored in to these characters' involvement in the story, but I wish there was more of them here. Look, the action's amazing in this movie, as you've come to expect. I mean, I love practical effects. I love, actual stunts, not just a CGI blob on screen. This film looks better and is more entertaining to watch than Ant-Man, than The Flash, than Indiana Jones. And especially with Indiana Jones, even the car chase sequences, like, even though the idea is the same, and even sometimes certain scenarios are the same with them being in really tight streets, Mission Impossible does it so much better because there are real cars and real people driving them. You can tell it's not filmed in front of a green screen. It's real, and I love that. That, to me, is what we need more of. More of those practical effects, more of those practical shots, and less behind a green screen. So yeah, action set pieces, stunts are incredible in this movie. I mean, I know it's hyped up a ton in the trailers, but that part when he takes the motorcycle right off the cliff and jumps off, I mean, I've seen that clip so many times, but seeing it on the big screen, I was on the edge of my seat. I knew what was going to happen, but I was at the edge of my seat. Crazy. Another thing I'll say, and this kind of caught me off guard, was the comedy in this film. It's nothing like I think we've seen before in Mission Impossible, and it threw me off. I'm not saying it was all bad. There were a lot of times where I wasn't expecting to laugh, but I did. Other times, it feels really misplaced. Like, it shouldn't be there. It was so weird seeing AI be the main villain of this film, especially with how heavily it's talked about right now. It's crazy to think about how movies that I watched 3 or 4 years ago that dealt with AI felt super futuristic and super unrealistic for the time that I'm living in right now. And now watching this film and AI be the main villain I don't know, it kind of creeps me out how actually possible this is. And I think it's done really well. The AI itself imposes a new threat for our heroes. It's not just some bad guy trying to obtain a nuclear weapon or a bioweapon that's going to blow up and kill a bunch of people. It's not that. It's something way different that knows our characters in a way that it can predict their moves, can predict what decisions they'll make. It's very interesting, and it's a cool threat to give our heroes. And I'm really interested to learn more about the entity in part 2, and especially its relationship with Gabriel. Yeah, I just think it's so crazy that we're now watching movies like this with AI and going, that's not so far out of the park. That's not too crazy. Is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 a masterpiece? By no means, but it's exactly what we need in theaters right now. This is the summer blockbuster we've been looking for, and Tom Cruise has done it yet again this year. Right after doing it with Top Gun Maverick, he's done it again here with Mission Impossible. It's got tons of fun action to watch, a really interesting story. It's got great, likable characters, a very interesting villain. And even though it does have a little too long of a runtime, some of the jokes fall really flat and seem out of place, and certain characters don't get enough screen time, I still think it's a worthy installment in the Mission Impossible franchise, probably one of my favorites. And again, it's just a really good time at the theater. See this on the biggest screen possible as you can right now before Oppenheimer and Barbie come out, and enjoy this film. But that's it from me. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought about Dead Reckoning Part 1. Good, bad, theories about Part 2, let me know down in the comment section. But as always, I love you all so much. Thanks for clicking on this video and watching it. I appreciate it. Love you guys, and until next time, peace out, bro skillets.